Want to learn how to make your very own fresh, nutrient-rich, worm-filled, crumbly compost at home? Then let me show you how. Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Michael, and if you're new here, welcome. I bring you all things garden related. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure you hit that like button and be sure to subscribe. So today we are discussing composting, in particular cold composting. So composting at home is a great way to divert green waste from landfill and to also be able to enrich your garden. To compost at home, you need 5 main ingredients. The first and most important is something to compost in. So for a cold compost system, it does take 6 to 12 months to actually create the compost that you can use in the garden. So my recommendation to you is to purchase 2. So if you're going to use the trusty old compost bin, I would recommend getting a second one so that once one is full, you can let it rest and sit for that 6 to 12 month period, however long it takes, and start filling the second bin. So that also includes things like your open compost bays. So rather than just have one, I'd probably have 2. You fill one and then you can let that sit and then start filling the second one. And tumblers also would fall under your cold compost. Most tumblers these days do have the 2 compartments. So you fill one first, let that sit as you're rotating it, and then start filling the second one. So once you have what you're going to compost into, you then need your ingredients. So your main ingredients are water, air, carbon and nitrogen. So your carbon and nitrogen is what is going to break down and turn into that nutritious, brown, fluffy goodness that you can add to your garden. So things that would contribute to nitrogen are your green waste. So you've got your kitchen scraps, so fruit and veg scraps. Coffee grinds are high in nitrogen, so make sure you keep those to add to your bin. And then also your green garden waste. So anything that you're cutting down that's alive would be rich in nitrogen to add to your compost bin. So other nitrogen sources include things like chicken manure. So if you have chickens, collecting the straw, the bedding that they poop in overnight is full of nitrogen. And if you're really keen, urine is very rich in nitrogen. So you can always go for a little tinkle into your compost bin if you're really game. And then you need your carbon. So that is your dry materials. So you've got things like dry leaves. Autumn's a perfect time, collect all of those dry leaves. You can also include things like bark chips, or something like straw is also carbon rich. So they are your 4 main ingredients. So now, how do we add it all to the compost bin? So here we have my compost bin that is currently on the go. So you can see it's full of, well, almost full of garden material, straw. There's also a whole bunch of food scraps in the bottom there. So the easiest way to remember the ratio that you need between carbon and nitrogen is to just go for a 50-50 mix. So whatever you put in for nitrogen, try and add the same amount of carbon. So we've got some garden scraps here, some clippings, which are all still alive, so we'll add those in. And then we had some bananas and a whole bunch of coffee grinds, so we can add that in. That's your nitrogen, and then we're going to add a whole bunch of straw for your carbon. So to create air, what you want to be doing is at least once a week is to rotate or to mix up your bin. So something like this, which is a compost aerator that you can get from most nurseries, is a great tool. So what you do is turn it and then give it a bit of a jiggle. So what that does is pulls things up from the bottom and mixes it with the new stuff that you've added at the top, and that will help things to start break down. So you can see some of the older stuff at the bottom there is looking a bit softer and mushier and less green, so it's slowly breaking down. And your final ingredient is water. So you can add some water to your bin, especially if it looks really, really dry. You could add a bit of water. If it's really dry, it means there's too much carbon. So you can add some more nitrogen, some more greens, and also probably a little bit of water. But with the bin sealed up with the lid over the top, that actually creates, as the nitrogen rich material breaks down, all this sort of stuff, it creates some moisture in the bin, which helps add that water component. Look at that at the bottom there. Full, look at all the worms. How good. So you want to try and pull the older stuff from the bottom to the top, so then it can help activate the composting process on the newer stuff. So as I said earlier, it can take between 6 to 12 months for your compost to break down and be ready to use in your garden. So that's why I always recommend having 2 on the go. Once your compost bin is full, it'll slowly settle a little bit, so you can continue to add to it, but you need to get to a point where you go, right, that's it, I'm going to let that one rest and I'm going to start my second compost bin. This one is my compost that is ready to go. If I can open it, look at that beautiful crumbly compost. I can start putting that on my garden and it will absolutely love it. Now there is some chunky bits in it, that breaks down, but some bigger bits. Oh, here we found an avocado seed. Perfect example of some things that take ages to break down. So sometimes you can squeeze them when they really break them apart, but no, that still needs a way to go before it is ready to be compost worthy. So what you can do is you can sift out, you can get a sifter and you can sift out the chunky bits and add those to your other compost bin. But the other stuff, you can add it to your garden. Now, as you can see, I'm very close to my compost bin and it smells like nothing. Compost should not smell. If it smells, something is wrong. It usually means it's too much nitrogen and you need to combat that with some added carbon. So that's how compost should be. Even as it's breaking down, it shouldn't really smell. So there you have it, cold composting. Easy for you to do at home. Even if you don't have a huge backyard, your compost tumblers will do the trick for you. But there is also other forms of composting. So you've got your hot composting, you've got worm farming, and you've even got bokashi composting, which is a slightly different type of composting altogether. Maybe I'll go through that in a future video, but for now, we might leave you to it and happy composting at home.